Shalom, this is Daniel John Lee with Torah Restoration Ministries. It is the weekly Sabbath, September the 13th, 2014. We are less than 2 weeks away from Yom Teruah, the Feast of Trumpets, first of the fall feasts. And I wanted to make a podcast about recent events transpiring with the U.S., Syria, and Russia. It's very interesting that it was exactly a year ago this month that Obama was on the verge of bombing Syria to remove the Assad regime. Of course, we all know what happened. Obama backed down because Russia, in effect, was threatening to start World War III if the U.S. decided to attack Assad. They threatened to attack Saudi Arabia. And there was some backdoor arm twisting and diplomacy, and then Obama basically said that they had reached out a diplomatic deal with Russia to facilitate Assad getting rid of his chemical weapons. Of course, we know that those chemical weapons really never were removed, still in Syria. And of course, there's also questions about who actually used the chemical weapons. Was it Assad or was it the Syrian rebels? Many of whom which now identify with ISIS. So now here we are a year later, and once again, Obama has authorized the use of airstrikes against Syria. Only this time, as he detailed in his speech on September the 10th, he intends to bomb Syria to attack not the Assad regime, but ISIS militants within Syria. Now, Syria has been saying, well, if you want to use airstrikes against the ISIS militants in our country, you need to get our cooperation. Of course, the United States says, no way, we're not going to cooperate with Assad. We hate Assad. We hate his regime. We're not going to cooperate with him. But Assad is saying, well, you need to get our permission. You need to cooperate with us, because they fear that if the U.S. starts bombing Syria to destroy ISIS, that they will also start bombing Assad's government. And what's interesting is that this article that I just found, and it's starting to pop up now on a bunch of different news agencies within the last 24, 48 hours, is that Russia is now saying that because the U.S. is refusing to seek the cooperation and permission of the Syrian government to bomb ISIS targets within Syria, Russia suspects that the United States will also try to use the bombing of ISIS within Syria as a pretext to bomb Assad's regime. And Russia is basically saying that they're very angry about this, and if the U.S. refuses to get the cooperation and agreement and permission of Damascus, of the Assad regime, then they have no choice but to believe that the United States is going to use the bombing of ISIS in Syria as a pretext and a cover to also start bombing Assad's regime. Now, the United States may indeed start doing that because that's what they wanted to do a year ago. But even if Obama and the U.S. military are not planning to do that, even if they're going to do everything they can to avoid bombing Assad's regime and only strike ISIS, the perception by both Russia and Damascus is that that's not what they're going to do. So here we are now on the verge of the fall feast once again, a year later, and we're almost in the exact same position we were in a year ago, where the United States is getting ready to bomb Syria, and Russia is very upset about it. Of course, Russia is very strong allies with the Assad regime and with Syria. So it'll be interesting to see if what was looking like it would transpire a year ago is now actually going to unfold this year. And I heard something on satellite radio news yesterday, and I forget which news anchor it was, but basically they said that the United States is going to be working on doing reconnaissance missions and trying to identify targets within Syria, but that within a month, over the next month, they're planning to start these airstrikes on Syria. And that's very interesting because a month from now would coincide with Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles, which is probably the most important and biggest feast of the year, and a very prophetic fall feast as well. So as the fall feasts are approaching, and as the U.S. now is getting ready to bomb Syria to take out ISIS targets within Syria, and Russia saying, no, you better not, because we think you're going to bomb Syrian government forces. It'll be really interesting to see what happens and how this all plays out. So I just wanted to highlight those things, and I'm going to provide some links at the bottom of the video to some of these articles that have just recently come out about Russia being very suspicious and very angry and very upset about the U.S. wanting to bomb Syria without seeking the permission or cooperation of Assad's regime. This is Daniel John Lee with Torah Restoration Ministries. Website is www.spiritandtorah.com. Shabbat Shalom.